Asiam and Estelicha Siam, how Heaton Sunnetsnat, Chuck Willumison, Heichka. My hands are raised to each and every one of you. Thank you for joining me on this Improve Lummi Nation Facebook page. This is actually a page that I helped start a long time ago. I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, as a mission, as a way to try to do whatever we could to help improve our tribal community. And, again, I've moved down here to Southern California. Why I've called the show Southern Lummi is because there's several of us Lummies that live here in the greater Coachella Valley. And thankfully, we've, most of it comes from my family. Most of the tribal members that live down here come from the Hilaire, the Thomases, the Jeffersons. These are folks that live down here. We made that choice to move away from the reservation. But just because we left Lummi Nation doesn't mean Lummi Nation has left us. And so there's several of us, as we get into graduation season, I believe there's 14 tribal members of Lummi that are actually either going from one grade higher, or they are descendants of Lummi Nation. They may not be enrolled members, but they are either graduating this year from either high school or college. And so just the show is really dedicated not only to them, and these are the younger generations of our tribe that, again, we made the conscious decision to move. Some of these kids did not make that choice to leave, but they're making the best of it. And a lot of us here are making the best of a new surrounding, a new situation that we've been living in. And, right now it's 105 degrees. So, you could say, oh man, you live in beautiful, the Coachella Valley, and it's so nice. But it gets really flipping hot here. And it's going to get hotter the next few months. So this is our equivalent to your guys's, or the tribe's winter, when it gets really, really cold. But what do? You just adapt, right? And so again, this page is designed to, I guess, for me personally, as a tribal member, I just turned 50 years old last month. I'm in my quote unquote birthday month and celebrating the next 30 days. But I'm kind of becoming an elder in training, and I've been getting a lot of the tribal members that do live down here asking me for help, whether it's understanding our language better, understanding our history. But I'm learning quite a bit. I might be giving of myself, in terms of trying to, share as much as I know. And I don't know everything. I'll be the first to tell you on this podcast, I do not know everything, but I've seen a lot. I was one of the youngest chief of staff tribal members we've ever had. I think I was 24 years old when I was entrusted on helping to run the tribal government. And then from there, I became director of communications for the tribe for several years, including creating our very first on-air TV news broadcast that we used to do, again, with the late Richard Warbis and his San Juan cable at the time. And then just continue to try to make the Squawk Call better with actual news and writing from local writers, including myself. And so, I've always had this desire to educate. And I ended up going over to the Northwest Indian College, worked in their philanthropy office for a little while, the development officer there, and then moved over to the Silver Reef Hotel Casino Spa, which a lot of us know now. And I was a director of marketing, which was a very heavy, focused position I was in, because I would be the one that would spend a lot of money to try to get folks to come into the casino. I then left Silver Reef because at the time the tribe was wanting to take over the casino away from another group that was running the casino, opened up the casino and helped us thrive over those years. And, trying to, again, it's great that the tribe's sovereign, and it looked like it was an easy job to do. But I think those of you that are watching were part of the very first years of trying to run the casino. It's a very difficult and demanding role to try to continue to, beat last year's numbers, to try to make sure that you don't, throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and try to do the best you can to improve the casino. And I know it's gone through, 5 or 6 different groups of tribal and non-tribal members that have worked in the senior level executive positions there. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, the tribe wanted that. I didn't think that it was something I wanted to jump into, being in a group of folks that really wanted to tear things down. One big thing was the cigar lounge. I know a lot of you guys remember that, and you guys thought it was horrible. But now here we are, 10, 12 years later from doing that, and there's cigar lounges all over the tribe's casinos. And, again, there was a reason why we built the cigar lounge. We knew that it would generate money and revenue. You might not see anybody inside the cigar lounge, but those folks were out on the gaming floor, and that's exactly what you wanted them. But it was that kind of mentality, that idea that just because we're sovereign, we could do whatever we want, and that's great. I am fully on board with sovereignty. I don't care if you're talking about gaming, education, we're talking about water, sewer, boards, all of it. That's really, and again, my goal again is to try to flex our sovereign muscles, but there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. I then moved away from Silver Reef. I tried working out in Minnesota for a few months. That didn't work out, and came back and couldn't find a job literally to save my life, and had some really dark thoughts and dark moments there for a while. And thankfully, it was the shelterless, the homeless tribal members that actually saved my life. I felt that after 18 months of trying to find a job, there was my opportunity to try to help the tribe, and did what I could to try to develop a homeless process for our homeless folks to get back on their feet. I think a lot of that is what's now the tiny home village. I think is really where we're at with that endeavor. But there was a lot of children. There was a lot of folks that didn't sign up to be homeless, that were homeless at the time. And I'm hoping that through the work that we did, with Siam Moet and Doug James and Nick Lewis and Rita Jefferson, these guys are the folks that were the genesis of helping me do the best we could to try to help our homeless folks. And so, we did that for a few years, and it was, again, one of the most, as Auntie Juanita Jefferson would tell you, one of the most generous acts of Lummi acts that we've ever had on the reservation. These are folks that, for the most of us, we weren't paid. We just went out, we did a count every couple of months to count how many tribal members we had out there. We did our data, how old were they, where were they living, were they in Bellingham, were they behind Walmart, all this stuff. And to then to try to open up a temporary housing facility for our people, especially when they got really cold. It was like I think it was like 38 degrees one night when we knew that the cold was even coming worse. And this was like October, November. And I remember that very first night, we literally broke down the door of one of the homes. We all now know it as the Cope House. And right there where the gas station is now off of 260, we broke that door open, and we started an indoor fire with the fireplace there, and a lot of our members came in and was able to find shelter. So it was that kind of thing that, again, that this podcast is designed to do, is to try to figure out how do we improve our tribe. How far have we come since then? And I think that was 2018 when we started. 17 and 18 when we were doing that work. I ended up working for the middle school there in Ferndale at Horizon. I felt like I worked with a lot of middle schoolers, and a lot of them are graduated from high school. The last few years, I've just really been blessed to be able to see that on Facebook. And at the end of the day, where are those kids at? Well, the ones that we helped either at the shelters or at the middle schools. They're high school now. They're graduates. They're 18, 19, 20 years old. And have we improved the reservation since then? That's my question. That's the kind of topics we're going to talk about on this podcast. Even though I'm calling it Southern Lummi, we're far, we're 2.5 states away, but we're still here. We're still trying to figure out how all these tribes here in Southern California, what are the basic trends that I'm seeing on how they're moving the needle, how they're improving their reservation. That's really what I'm asking. And so as we continue to move on and move forward on this journey together, I'm going to have some ground rules, and I'll be posting those ground rules. The ground rules, number one, is that we do not do not say specific names. We're not here to point a finger at one person and for all of us to pile on. We're not here to also, you can say that a department can improve, but I am not asking you to tell me and tell everybody how angry you are with a department because they did something specific for you or against you. They did not do something for you. You could say things in general, things that you might have seen or might have heard, but again, this is not a pile-on session on this. Again, the idea is to try to move the needle through communication and be able to educate and share with one another some things that you might have thought, things that you might have seen, and maybe the council or the general council can think about ways to try to bring those kinds of ideas to the reservation and to make us a stronger, improved Lummi Nation. So I'm thankful that you're joining me on this journey. I'm hoping that you'll continue to listen in, to chime in if you feel comfortable. I'm going to be doing some live, sort of workshops throughout the year. And again, just want to thank you again for joining me. And again, we're connected. We're Lummi. We come from very strong shouldered, ancestors that were so resilient, that lived off the land, they lived off the water, they fished, they hunted, that's what they did through the harshest of winters, through the white settlers that came to, not even before that, with all the canoe wars that we had. We come from strong people. And I firmly believe that through this kind of medium where we can actually talk and be able to share ideas, to be able to dream and be able to say, how do we reach that dream? If we all say that'd be great to have, let's talk it out. Could we do to improve? I'm not running for council. That's the one thing, the other sort of ground rule here. I'm living outside Whatcom County, and through today's Constitution, I am unable through the Lummi Constitution to even vote. So I can't even vote on anything that the tribe. I can't vote on who's the next council member. I have literally no dog in the voting fight. My goal here is to educate you, those of you that are living within the Whatcom County borders, that can vote, that can make changes. That's where I'm at. And so, people can say this or that and a third, that I'm trying to help somebody get on council. That is not true. But if somebody learns something from this podcast and they're able to take it and they can verify the information that we're sharing and then be able to present it, oh man, that's exactly why this makes so much sense for us to try this medium. So again, want to thank each and every one of you again for joining me. We'll continue to progress, and then each segment we're going to get into what I call what did they say. And here's one of the things that, again, I'm going to be, those of you that do share on social media, and we're going to go with the Lummi Nosy Neighbors, the Lummi Nosy Neighbors page. And so here it is. If you go on there today, again, this is Thursday, Thursday, June 4th, you can actually go onto this page here and be able to see this a little bit better. There we go. So this is from an anonymous member, which I openly don't agree why they allow anonymous on the Lummi Nosy Neighbors report page, but you know what? To each their own. On the Lummi Nation, the Improve Lummi page, I believe I do not allow that. But here you can see somebody wrote that they believe that this will separate our tribe even more, that there's division everywhere, and it's so sad. This is regarding the hereditary chief ceremony. So again, those of you that are young Lummies that are wondering what is happening with this, those of us that have been around for a long time know that we have a chief. It's a hereditary chief, which is different than the tribal council. They are not elected. They do not vote on any political things. The hereditary chief is there to make sure that our culture, our language, all the beautiful things that make us who we are continue. And, they get invited to a lot of different various functions, like the first salmon ceremony. Then there's all kinds of other ways that we do this. And I'm not here to say that I was against this hereditary chief being able to be installed, these two gentlemen here. And so what I am here to say, though, is it was a little concerning trying to figure out what was happening. Because, of course, 2.5 states away, there's times where I know more about what's happening on the reservation than my mom does. And my mom is Dodie Williams, Dodie Thomas Williams. And so she will be like, how did you find that out? I'm like, I just saw it on Facebook. And she doesn't get on Facebook. So, but anyway, there's times like this where you'd wish that there were more information on how we decided on these two folks. And, I don't know who they are specifically. I mean, again, like I said, I'm older, but I'm trying to, figure out exactly, their English names. And I'm sorry, I can't see the pictures even. So I'm a little concerned about, I just don't know who they are. And I feel like I've known almost everybody's hereditary names, but, again, sometimes out of sight, out of mind. And that's on me, right? But at the end of the day, what this person is saying is that they feel like this will separate our tribe even more. And I think that my thought on this is that, I think the big elephant in the living room that I think a lot of people not really fail to remember, but they sometimes forget, is that Lummi is made up of a mixture of different families that all come from a variety of parts of what we now call Coast Salish. And we were pushed together as one community, similar to a lot of the reservations, and 99% of reservations that were formed were done so in a way that probably wasn't the most feasible or best way to doing it. And so we have several ways of doing things. We have naming ceremonies that are different from family to family. You've got, and I hate to say it, funeral services that are different. But at the end of the day, we all have to, just like I was saying about the cold and harsh winters, we have to adapt. We have to adapt, or else things die. And that's what they say, either you adapt or you die. And the way that the current council and the way that the current, because I think even though the council is political, I'm sure that they were briefed and they were probably talked to about, how they were going to install these two gentlemen to become our chief, and why these two gentlemen were chosen. It would have been nice to know that. It would have been nice to hear that, directly from the elders or the folks, I don't know if it was a culture committee or who the ones that were behind it, share why that this was important. And so we have to adapt, you guys. We need chiefs. That they were definitely set there for a reason. And, we're hoping that these two folks, will continue to be very participatory in the process, how we grow as a tribe, because we are getting bigger. And I hope that that they'll spend time with the kids, that they will, promote to the best of their ability what it means to be Lummi. And I don't think that the installation of these two gentlemen are what's going to split us up, but I do believe that that the heart of all this, I think we both can agree, this anonymous person and myself could probably agree, that the process and the way that we communicated this could have been way better. There's the way of doing things like this on podcasts, and then there's a way of being able to go right to family members' homes. Like my family, the Thomases, we gather all the time. Lately, we've been gathering on Kagi Road, for example. And, it would have been nice to have somebody come in and talk to all of us about this process. I remember when we had the burial, one of our ancestors were desecrated back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And at the time, they sent me, the council did. They said, we need you to go in front of the home, go to the homes and tell them what happened, because we're not going to use Squall Call. We didn't have websites back then. There was no video. Nobody had cell phones. It was all dial-up, right? And so the goal then was to make sure that we um, directly communicated with our family members about something so important. And I think this is one of them. It could have been one of them where somebody came to our homes and told us what happened. And then from there, it's up to our families to then, be the runners of the information and be able to share that with as many of the family members as possible so that they can communicate with their friends. They might see him at the reef. They might see him on the treadmills, right? They might see him somewhere and be able to say, yeah, this is what happened. This is how they did it. But I think that's something that, in the future that I think these two chiefs can possibly remind us. And that's really what we need. We just need to have reminders, right? How to do things and how to do things the right way. And again, because we're made up of so many different people, different types of families, the right way is never going to be the only way, right? It's going to be 3 or 4 different right ways of doing something, unfortunately. And so it's up to us, though, to be able to take this information and be able to share it with our people and in the best way. All right, let's keep going on this page. Again, I want to thank the Lummi Nosy Neighbors. I think it's Jolene. Don't get me wrong. I might be wrong about that, but that does this one here, that manages this one. Let's go ahead and fill the canvas there. So here's another one. This is from Lucas Wilson. Hey, Luke, how you doing? I got a brother named Luke, by the way. He says, Dear Lummi Council, when are you going to get tired of Tulalip kicking our ass business-wise? And this was based off of Dick's Drive-In. Those of us that, go to Seattle probably have stopped in there a million times, and we all love it. And now the Tulalips are getting it. And so, yeah, that's a very valid question. Why? I don't know if it's just so much about the Dick's Drive-In, because as many of you might know, they're very, very... they're like In-N-Out Burger. They don't just go everywhere. They don't just allow expansion because they want to be able to have it within a certain radius so that they can go take a look at it to make sure that it fits and is custom to the way they like to do business, to make sure that the lines are not as long or the way that they communicate to their customers is the same, that the wrappers and everything that they put on the burgers are the same, and everything is uniform. And so, I could see that the heart of this question is, asking about economic development and, what are we doing again to try to keep up with tribes like Tulalip, like Muckleshoot, like even the Spokanes over there in Eastern Washington, who are killing it. They're literally have done a lot of expansion. They've created a lot of jobs. They're doing what they can to try to employ as many of their people as possible. And what has Lummi done? I don't think Lummi, again, in the 7 years I've lived in Southern California, when I left Lummi, we didn't have a lot of the stuff that we have now. Just to remind ourselves, we do have the new gas station, which, but it's not so new anymore. And then I guess we're getting that Black Bear Diner, I've heard. And so then you're like, okay, what else, Aaron? What else is there? And I'm scratching my head too, because I know when I worked when I was living up there, I was on the Economic Development Committee for about a year or a little bit less than a year, and was actually was voted off the Economic Development Committee because I was against the person that was the chairman at the time of the Economic Development Committee, who didn't like the way that I did my politics, and he didn't like the fact that I wanted to. I think we had gotten some of that money from the federal government that we could, either put towards a pool or we could put towards a facility, or you can give it right directly to the people. I think it was from the Land Act. I can't remember which one that was, but we got several millions of dollars for that. And his idea was to put it through a facility. My idea was to give it directly to the people, because at the time I was helping homeless people and I knew they needed it. And so I'm like, you know what, if this is going to help somebody get food tonight, I'd much rather do that than hope that one day that money will actually go to a facility. That was my sort of way of saying I didn't think that the tribe would ever move on that money. In fact, possibly the money could have went into other people's hands and not directly to benefit the greater community. So I was like, let's take that money and let's give it to our people. Well, they didn't like that. And at the time, I was told that a couple of council members at the time wanted some kind of repercussions because I was the one promoting the idea of giving it directly to the people and was let go. Now, again, this podcast is not designed to tell people who they were, to pile on as to why, or to settle vendettas or anything like that. But again, that's how petty our people can get sometimes. Here I am, a guy that's got his master's of business degree. I'm not saying that that matters too much, but it does give me the ability to say that some of us do know and are experts, are subject matter experts in certain areas. Business was one of them. And they let me go, the only one that was on the Economic Development Committee, because they didn't like my politics. I don't get that. It's not helping the greater good to have me off of that, or anybody that's got their education. Again, our people were told us, kids, go get your education, go get that white man's schooling and bring it back to the reservation. But you know what? I will tell you this firsthand. About 90% of those of us have gotten our doctorates, our business degrees, or education degrees, or social services degrees. They don't live in Lummi no more. We have something going on where when folks like us get our education and did exactly what the elders told us to do, and they figure out a way to either burn us out or kind of spit us up, chew us up and spit us out, or release us. And maybe it's because of other reasons, but what I'm trying to get to is the fact that there's just the way that we're set up is not like the other tribes. So I don't fault the ones that are in there now that are trying the economic development process. They're trying their best. I see them at the National Congress of American Indians. I see them at Reservation Economic Summit. They're going to the national and regional conferences to try to learn. And they're in there. Believe me, I've seen them work. But you guys, what makes the tribes down here in Southern California work with economic development, like a Dix or like a putting in a business that would generate a lot of income and jobs, good family wage jobs, isn't the way that it's set up now. It's because it has to come from the voters. And you could say, yeah, but we go to every general council meeting and we tell them what we want and they don't do what we want. It comes back to the Constitution, y'all. The Lummi Nation Constitution, who my late great uncle, granduncle told me before he passed away. He used to be chairman of the tribe back when the Constitution was either just passed or had been in effect for a year or two. He said, Aaron, make sure you let folks know that we need to revise that Constitution. It was just supposed to be a bookmark. It was supposed to be a placeholder until we figured out how to do it what's best for us, so that we could get out of the light of the BIA, get from underneath their thumb. We used to have to travel to Portland to cut a tree. We used to have to, ask the one in Everett, the office there, to come and help us. We didn't get much help, and it was self-government that we wanted. And so that Constitution was the framework, the foundation to self-government. It allowed us to be able to then one day open up a casino and one day do all the great things we need to do and help us protect our fishing rights, our hunting rights. All this stuff is all based off of the fact that we are a federally recognized tribe that has a binding agreement with the United States through the Treaty of 1855. And so everywhere in Indian country, those tribes that are not federally recognized, they're still looking for that. They're seeking it. They're basically bona fide or glorified homeowners associations, those folks. And I don't mean to demean them. They're good people. They come from strong, resilient people too, but they're not recognized by the federal government. I'm not saying the federal government's the grand old be all of everything. I've got my big question marks with them. But what I'm saying is that all this is tied to one document, and it's the Lummi Nation Constitution. And you can look it up, Google it, you can AI it, you can do whatever you want. But when you see what is going on inside that Constitution, you guys, all these questions that you have that I see on these Facebook pages and posts about, why isn't Lummi improving? It all comes back down to that Constitution. I've been saying that. I used to put posts out about 5 or 6 years ago. I remember posting that. And you got some elders have been pounding the drum for decades, trying to get us to change that Constitution and revise it, that gives the power and allows for the greater dividing of power. Right now, it's all in one lump section, and that's our tribal council. They have all the power. And I think it was posted recently, somebody had said on Facebook that it is an oligarchy. Look it up. What is an oligarchy? It is where all the power resides in a small group of people. That is the way the Constitution was done. But again, it was just a placeholder. And at the time, we didn't know I hate to say it, how greedy we were going to be when we first started the Constitution. We didn't know if the people were going to want everything and, not allow our elected leaders to do stuff. So we said, for now, okay, 1972 or 1968 or whatever year it was, we'll just give it to a group of 11 people that can help make sure. And it was 11 for a reason too, right? Why was there 11 council members at the beginning? It was because many of them fished and they were out on the water and they couldn't tend to a council meeting, even though we had to do that. We had to show the federal government we were self-governing. So as long as you have 6, right, you just need a majority to have to constitute a quorum, which is the minimum amount of people you need to even have and be able to vote on things. 6 was good. That worked. When you had 11 or you had 5 or 6 fisherwomen out on the waters, or they were hunting, or they were gathering, whatever they were doing, again, before casinos, before all this stuff, we didn't have a lot back then. We didn't have money coming in. And so they had to figure out how to make a living, right? How to put food on the table. So, those first councils, if you were to go back, and I remember my late grandfather, Howe Heaton, Earl Thomas Sr., the late Earl Thomas Sr., reminded me, that those were trying days. They were literally using chalkboards and literally writing on every centimeter of that chalkboard an idea of ways to improve the Lummi Reservation. And so they did the best they could with this Constitution at the beginning. But as decades have gone forward and you see other tribes and what they've done to improve themselves, is that now when I talk to council members in my walk, and I know a lot of elected leaders around Indian country, thankfully I've met them. The number one thing when I say, why don't you guys just build that? They say, we got to go ask the voters. We got to go ask the general council first. And if they give me the green light on this, I'm going. We're going to go ahead and push forward. And that's the second phase. So first phase is that comes from the people. The people, because of their constitutions, are updated. They are the ones that set the direction for the council to go and do their thing. But when the general council says go, boy, that's what they said. They go, and they're on a time limit because their own council seat is up within 12 months or 18 months or 36 months, 3 years. They want to get it done before it's time for re-election. And then if the people see there's progression, then they vote them back in to finish the deal. We don't do things like that at Lummi. I know that because I ran for tribal council 5 times. Almost got in the last 2 years, but missed it by just less than 1% both last times. We vote because we love the person. We don't vote for somebody because we love the person. I love you, Aaron. I think you're an amazing person, and I don't want you on council because I don't want to think poorly of you. What? You're not voting for me because you don't want me on council because you think poorly of me? We've got a lot of work to do, guys and gals. We have to do better. We need to get that Constitution revised yesterday. Again, my late grand uncle told me that. Get it done. Finish it. Update it. Some tribes have a 2-paragraph constitution. Some tribes have a very elaborate one, but we got to get that looked at. And again, we're going to have, we've tried reforming our constitution a few times, but we got too far into the weeds. I think what we need to do is to create several groups of people and start with the Northwest Indian College, you guys. Ask the Northwest Indian College to fund it and have a group of 3 or 4 different groups of students that are all out there trying to get, community members to come, but let them create 4 or 5 different structures or proposals for a new constitution, and then bring it in front of the people and have a weekend or, every once a week, have dinner at the Wesleyan and invite people in, or do it, and also do it virtually. That's the other thing that people get so caught up on is, we don't want it on Facebook. Nobody will show up. Well, sometimes if you don't have it on Facebook, nobody shows up anyway. So at least you give a lot of people a fighting chance to have it on in the background. Maybe they're not fully engaged, but at least they're listening somewhat. These are all ways we can improve Lummi, y'all. This is what I'm talking about. This is ways that we can try to get better, and it starts with our Constitution. All right, let's keep going. I feel like I've rambled on that one probably a little bit longer than I wanted to, but again, it's a valid question. Are we going to improve our economic development? Are we going to try to get better, family wage jobs on the reservation? Maybe we can get Amazon, to build something and, have 300 or 400 different, jobs that are available and give priority to our people. This anonymous member, Res Rich. People always ask, what's it like living on the res? Well, let's see what he says, or she says. The speed limit is 35, but Auntie's gossip travels at approximately 127 miles per hour. If you stop at the gas station, you better have 20 minutes free. You're not getting gas. You're getting updates. Who got married? Who broke up? Who bought a new truck? And who definitely should not have bought a new truck? And somehow grandma knows all of it. And before you even leave the parking lot on the res, nobody actually owns anything. That ladder, community ladder, you borrowed it 3 years ago. Nobody remembers whose it was to begin with. And if you're heading into LIBC, you better budget some extra time. You might think you're going in to handle one quick thing. You're not, because sooner or later, you're going to run into Auntie Maria. And once you do, your schedule belongs to her. Auntie Maria is the unofficial Lummi Squawk. If CNN, Facebook, and every auntie on the reservation formed one person, it would be Auntie Maria. It goes on and on. That's great. I love that. You guys go back to that post if you want to continue. It's just really kind of goes long, but that's so true. All right, Natalie Washington's asking, does anyone know if Lummi helps with catching up on childcare fees? Well, like a one-time help. I've been sick and missed some work recently. I just need help catching back up. Oh man, that's another one that pulls at my heartstrings, because I did try to open up a daycare center at Lummi. I don't know if you guys remember that. Tried the best I could to create Dodie's Daycare, I think is, or Grandma Dodie's Daycare is what I called it. And unfortunately, I did not succeed in getting that done. But yeah, childcare is another major hurdle all around the United States. And so, but I think again, at the heart of Natalie's question is there a one-time help? I don't think there is. Nobody posted on this. This was a little bit earlier today. But, at the end of the day, it's like, it'd be nice if we had a slush fund for tribal members who do run into financial hardship. And it happens. It happens to even folks that probably are very much well off on the reservation, believe it or not. Some unexpected financial experience, thing comes up, and now they're struggling to figure out how to get back into the black, not into the red. And so, no, I don't think there is a one-time help there, Natalie, and I wish there was. But yeah, at the end of the day, you guys, I think that's all I'm gonna share today. I think it's been 40 minutes. Woo! 40 minutes. So I'm hoping you guys enjoyed this edition of the very first episode of Southern Lummi. Again, I'm here to try to help. If you guys have any questions or concerns or want to post your thoughts on this, go ahead and post it down below. Please be kind in your posts. And I'm not saying you have to, give me roses or anything on Facebook, but, just don't be mean. Be as respectful as you can. That's what I really want to build on this small community